Earth Wars, Chapter 7, Return of the Obi-Wan. During the Clinton War in America in the mid-90s, Obi-Wan Coyote led his band of rebel listeners to defeat gun control in the free and independent state of Florida. While serving the people of Boston, Obi-Wan Coyote was snatched from the airwaves by the Clintonian Empire and has been in seclusion until Princess Pelosi and Hussein the Drain took over the Imperial Senate and came to power, while the economy was tanking from the Fannie and Freddie trillion-dollar theft. Hussein the Drain and the Princess Pelosi have captured the Tidy Bowl Man and his ship and are planning to sink the entire economic system of the planet Earth.
Good morning. It's a beautiful Saturday here in Florida. And today this is going to be episode 30 of the This Week with Mike Wiley. We decided to cut away the world this week with Mike Wiley. Our battles are right here on this part of the planet. I think we have more to do with a coming war with Mexico than we do with Iran. Yeah, I said that, a coming war with Mexico. At some point in time, the U.S. military is going to have to go in and take out the Mexican cartels, which are aligned with the Chinese, since the Mexican government is too corrupted to be able to stand up for the Mexican people. Mexico is a beautiful country. The Mexican people are beautiful people, but their governments suck. And sometimes they just may need a little help in helping get rid of the scum in their country. And I think the United States is going to have to do that at some time. And maybe if we do get an election this fall, that may happen. So our new show is just going to be called This Week with Mike Wiley. And basically our theme is Earth Wars, which I developed back in 2010 when I foresaw understand how I think. People always do something for a reason. Now, when they went through to make sure that Barack Obama, this piece of garbage, in a sense, that they groomed up to sell to us, the American people, and to Black America. Black America thought, oh boy, we're gonna have somebody that's really gonna get us in the right direction. And it turned out it was Trump that did that, not Barack Obama, and sure as hell wasn't Joe Biden. And we're covering that today in the aspects of things that we're seeing. But what they went through to make sure Barack Obama won his U.S. Senate race, and they didn't have to go ahead and take JFK Jr. and send him down into an airplane crash over Martha's Vineyard so that a Democrat like Hillary Clinton could get elected to U.S. Senate, because she was also going for the presidency. She was on the same war path as Obama, but the same international scumbags that support Obama and feed Obama, like China, Iran, they weren't supporting Hillary. Hillary made a deal with the Russians. The Russians wanted to help her in 2016, and she turned it around with, the Democrat plan, which is always to charge your opponent with what you do. If you commit crimes, blame your opponent to have committed those crimes. So we're going to go over a few things so that you understand there's a major issue in this country. And the issue is the Democratic Party is a group of progressives that are not aligned in support of the Constitution of the United States, which is the law of the land. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's my oath. That's my pledge I've been taking since I was in kindergarten. And I'm going to continue to do so. which is why today I begin battles with the IRS and their criminal organization. And I'm going to cover some of that today, along with that was actually what the show was going to be about. And then what happened was uh, we, we got some video. We got some really good video. And I've kind of merged it together. We have 4 videos we're going to show you. Remember, the way I present myself is this way. I don't just give opinions. I give opinions based on fact, based on evidence. That's how I work. It's just my mom always said I was born to be a lawyer. I probably was. Probably could have been if I had only understood that I had a reading disorder when I first went to my first year in law school and couldn't pass my finals, but can't be defeated in court. It's just been proven in 20 years of pro se law that when I have my stuff together, I just know how to present it. And being a radio talk show host sure helped it. And we're expecting that will also help me in the presentation of this, what some people term podcasts. I like to consider it a video radio show because most podcasts are done by, I'm not going to say idiots, but by people who are introducing information to you, but they can't really go any further than that. And I've watched them all. I mean, there's some people that have 4 people on their panel because they can't carry the show themselves. You know, remember Rush Limbaugh? How many people did Rush Limbaugh have on his show when he did it? None. He carried that show for 3 hours on his own. I did radio. My radio shows were 4 hours. I did 4 hours on my own. Even when I started off first thing doing radio in the morning, it was me and me alone. Because I have the capacity to understand information. Of course, that was 30 years ago. Now I've been doing this war for 30 years, fighting the left and their issues. But remember, the Constitution is the law. The Democrats do not follow the Constitution, and I don't understand why we haven't done more about it. But you're going to see some of that stuff today. There's some people in the Republican Party that are ready to fight. I'm going to make a comment about the Marjorie Taylor Greene issue with Mike Johnson. Okay, Marjorie Taylor Greene is a great bomb thrower. Okay, she'll stand in front of the cameras and she'll throw bombs at people that are attacking the country, people that need to be dealt with. Okay, she's a conservative. She has her way of doing things. Mike Johnson is a conservative as well. But Mike Johnson is also a well-established attorney who who is a constitutional attorney. Okay, and he has a background in years in presenting documented facts. When you watch him with Trump the other day, he's perfect. Okay, and Trump knows he is. Trump's putting the team together. All we need to do is hope that there's an election, number one, and number two, the Republicans do something to make sure that the 15 million illegals that have been let into the country don't replace the 15 million fake ballots of 2020. We're going to cover that today because a bit of evidence came out yesterday, the day before, that I'm going to present to you. Okay, I've presented my case about the election fraud. I have shows that I have covered it, the whole ball of wax, everything, how they did it. Okay, but everybody doesn't want to say anything about it. But understand one thing. The Democrats recognize that they're full of shit. They're full of shit. They know they're full of shit, and they're lying. And they lie all the time. So what do they have to do? Democrats have to make sure that their media supports their lie. And the way to support a lie is to provide bullshit evidence that the lie is true. Even though the lie is bullshit. So they always have to keep, the reason why campaigns cost a lot of money is because those candidates who are full of shit, and the people know they're full of shit, but they have to lie to you. Well, you need to spend more money to lie. You don't have to spend a lot of money to tell the truth. The truth is the truth, as I used to say when I campaigned in '94. The truth is the truth. And I always defended the truth. I always went with the truth because that's who I am. That's how I was raised. But now we know how the other people were raised. The ones that stand right there on TV and lie to your face over and over again, like Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, Adam Schiff, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton. Why are all these people full of shit? Why? Because that's the way they are. That's who they are. They're progressives. They don't believe in the republic. In 1913, they passed an illegal tax law, and that was progressives of both Republican and Democrats together because they thought that would be the way. How else can you steal money from the American people? They've stolen over $100 trillion from us. And that's part of what this show is going to be about because I'm fighting some issues. I've been waiting a long time to fight them. 10, 12 years ago, I wasn't in any condition to fight the IRS. But I am in condition today to fight the IRS. And I'm going to fight them. All right. It needs to be done. So let's first, what we're going to do is I'm going to present information to you, and then I'm going to show you some videos. All right. The first video is why the 2020 election was stolen. Okay. Now, when you look through the bullshit, and you remember the Democrats throw a lot of bullshit at you, so that at some point in time you go, okay, I give up. Even though I know you're full of shit, I'm going to agree with you because I can't defeat you because I don't have the intestinal fortitude to stand up to your lies over and over again. But that's what you have to do. You have to stand up for the truth. You have to stand against the lies. And the lies are that 2020 was not stolen, when in fact it was. So I have a background in investigations, finding out what the truth is. I'm really good at that shit. I really am. Because my mind works like it still does, thank God, works like a matrix. And I can be sitting in my recliner just the other day, like I did the other day, watching TV, and all of a sudden, wham! Holy shit, something gets out. Something gets out past the web of media, hiding the truth. And that's the first video I'm going to show you today. Because you see, nobody else has covered the election fraud like I have. All right? So let me give you some instances. Okay, we do know that Hillary Clinton was supposed to win the 2016 election. The way that the Democrats had figured it out this way, okay? They had 8 years of Clinton, and the Clintons began to do certain things like give gyro technology to the Chinese so they could bomb us. That was nice of the Clintons. Why they haven't sat in electric chairs yet, I have no idea. The Clintons have killed quite a few Americans during their time in office, okay? Then we had George Bush, and George Bush's job as a Texas president was to go for the oil, just like Lyndon Baines Johnson did, except there was no oil in Vietnam, off the shores of Vietnam, but they thought there was. Oil and drugs, oil and drugs, oil and drugs, oil and drugs. That's the name of that tune. Why do you think the Democrats allow all these drugs to cross the border from Mexico? We didn't have to go to Vietnam to get drugs now. We can get them from Mexico via China. Unfortunately, those drugs are killing our children. They're killing people. And that's against the law. So, we knew that they wanted to get Hillary to win. What is that? Oh, I guess that's the coffee maker. So Hillary Clinton had to win. Hillary Clinton was not getting the help she was expecting to get from Obama's people. Now, who are Obama's people? Okay, Perkins Coie is a big law firm, started in 1912, just before all this bullshit started. Okay, they controlled Obama. Obama is not the big kingpin that they say he is. If you really read all this information, you'll find out that actually the secretary for Obama when he was president, she was an employee of Perkins Coie. She was assigned to keep track of Obama and keep him going in the right direction. Because evidently Obama is who we thought he was. Okay, sure, he can make a real good speech and come up and say stuff, but he's still a piece of garbage. He's always been a piece of garbage, but he's not an American piece of garbage. And that was the problem. The enemies of our nation were able to get a piece of garbage into the White House and violate the laws, and they came up with a fake, phony, everybody's going to go, oh, yeah, the birth certificate, they proved it was real. It wasn't real. Who sends an attorney out to Hawaii to come back with a birth certificate? Couldn't it come by postal service? Hi, hello, yeah, we'd like to get that real birth certificate that's in your system for Obama. Oh, you don't have one? You mean there isn't one? All right, we're going to send one of our attorneys over there, and they'll come back with one. Thanks so much. And so the Perkins Coie people went to Hawaii. They came back with this birth certificate. There's a couple of mistakes on it, and that's been exposed. But they got that past us. They tried to get Hillary Clinton past us, but that didn't work. When Donald Trump came down the elevator in 2015, that set off the warning bells. They didn't really know what Trump was going to be capable of doing. Okay, they didn't know that a real human being who has years of business experience and corporate experience, CEO experience, would come in and take over the country and run it the way Americans want it to be run. Not the way Democrats want it to be run. Remember, the Democrats are the party of slavery. Don't forget, these assholes were Confederates. They enslaved black people all they wanted to. Now they enslave all of us. And one of the things they use is the IRS. And that's part of what we're going to discuss. But right now, we're going to discuss why the 2020 election had to be stolen. No one's ever told you this. No one's ever told you why it had to be stolen. Now, in order for them to steal this, they had to put together a plan. But the question is, what created the incentive to need a plan? What documented facts had to be taken and understood to do what they did to steal the election? And so I'm going to show you this video right now of this woman who's getting a hug by Donald Trump at a Chick-fil-A in Atlanta. And it's an excellent campaign opportunity. It shows Trump in his natural order. Trump loves America. He loves the American people. He doesn't give a shit if you're black or white or whatever. But we do know that Trump has worked in the past with Jesse Jackson to help his Rainbow Coalition and to create black businesses and to create black construction laborers and get equal opportunity. Now, why is that? Why would Donald Trump want to help black people, want to help Hispanics, want to help every American? Why? Because he knows America cannot grow if we don't all grow together. You can't expect to have an economy and a growing industry of business in the United States if you have sections of the country that are total poverty stricken. And the only good part about those areas is they vote Democrat all the time. They vote Democrat all the time. They vote Democrat all the time. What would happen if they knew they weren't going to vote Democrat this time? And then we find out when a Fox News guy gets a hold of this woman and finds out who she's all about, and she tells you why the election fraud had to be committed. She doesn't mention that it was election fraud. She's just telling you that black people weren't going to be voting for Biden because the things Biden did that they weren't going to vote for about happened before Trump was even president. The Democrats knew. Just because they don't show the polls to tell them what they knew, that's the secret. Democrats knew the blacks weren't going to come out and vote for Biden. Okay? When they say Biden got 91, 92% of the black vote in 2020, that's bullshit. Of course they didn't get 92%. Why do you think they needed 15 million fake votes? Who was not going to be voting? Okay? Who is not going to be voting? This woman's going to explain it to you as to why they weren't going to vote for Biden. We know from information that there was a company called GBI Strategies in Tennessee, black organization, and they were hired by the Democratic Party to go out and get registrations of all the black people who don't vote and aren't going to vote for Biden so they could make up fake ballots for him. And of course, they were going to be mail-in ballots. And of course, they had to be signed. And of course, they're not going to match the signature of the people if they were registered but weren't voting. So you had to make sure that the registrations weren't going to be, the signatures weren't going to be matched up. And that was the purpose for the lawsuits in Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin by Perkins Coie's Mark Elias, the Hillary Clinton monster. So here's GBI Strategies. Okay, in 2020, they got $2 million from the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. Gee, Mike, why would they get $2 million from the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee? Can you explain that to us, Mr. Wiley? Well, let's see. I know there's a presidential election, but if black people aren't coming out to vote for Biden, that means black people won't be out to vote for the 2 Democratic Senate candidates in Georgia, or the Senate candidate in Arizona, or the Senate candidate in Michigan. There were 4 U.S. Senate seats in the states where the criminal activity occurred through the election fraud, and those gave the Democrats the Senate. Remember, the Democrats go for home runs. They wanted the White House, they wanted the Senate, and they wanted the House of Representatives. They wanted all 3 branches, okay? And I've got a second video of a Republican rep from Indiana, Miss Spatz. She's from Soviet Union. She knows communist really good. And she points out some shit in her 5 minutes that you need to hear. You need to hear. So we also know that GBI was kind of sloppy when they were going into Detroit, Wayne County and Oakland County. So what they did was they set up this fake thing in Muskegon. I knew it was fake right off the bat. Okay, why would they be going to get the black vote from Muskegon? There was very little difference in voting. The idea was to let them get caught there, so that the FBI was already paid off. So the there is no FBI. There is no FBI, just like there is no IRS. There is no FBI. So the Muskegon thing was to draw the state of Michigan's police force away from the activities of what was going in Detroit, which was the creation of fake mail-in ballots to be entered into the election. Okay. Remember the video of the van at 6 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the morning coming into Detroit with 150,000 votes so Biden could win? You know, the spikes in Wisconsin, and the fraud was obvious. But what was not obvious was why the fraud. Why did the Democrats have to steal the election? How do the Democrats know they had to steal the election? This young lady's going to tell you. I'm just pointing some stuff out to you. Then the DNC gave $1 million to GBI. Black PAC gave $484,000. Biden for president gave $450,000. Okay, now try to find GBI. It's in Tennessee, but it's kind of elusive. Open Secrets. Open Secrets tells you who got what money in an election campaign. All right, I'm just going to read this to you. Here is, and I've read this before in one of my other shows. This is a list of the money that the Democratic National Committee expended. All right, and unfortunately, these numbers are awfully small, but the fourth down was $18 million to the Democrat National Committee. $12 million to the Democrat Party of Florida. Perkins Coie, huh? Yeah, they were controlling they were managing the steal. They were managing the steal. That's right. You want to come after me, Perkins Coie? Let's go to court. You're a bunch of lawyers. Come take me to court for defamation, claiming that you were involved in the election fraud. Huh? Who do you think made the phone call at 11 o'clock at night telling 6 states to stop counting? Huh? Who did that? Democrat Party of Pennsylvania got $11 million. Democrat Party of Michigan got $7.6 million. Democrat Party of Georgia got $7 million. Democrat Party of Wisconsin got $7 million. Gee whiz. That's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 4 of the top 12 organizations getting money from the Democrats was the state of Georgia, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. How much in bribes were they paying for all these people in the inner cities to commit the fraud for the election? Remember the videos? Remember in Detroit where they were putting up the wall so people couldn't see what was going on? And then in Georgia where they started running machine ballots through, and it was videotaped, but they came back going, "No, it didn't happen. You people are sick." Okay. Before we get to her, this is Brookings. Brookings bullshit. Okay, Brookings is an organization in D.C. I'd say they're disinformation organizations. They're full of shit. They present shit based on their being so entitled. New 2020 voter data, how Biden won, how Trump kept the race close. Biden didn't win the election. Why do they say they did? This is on July 6, 2021, after January of 2021, January 6th. Contrary to the fears of some Democrats, Biden maintains solid support among African Americans. That's not true. Biden received 92% of the black votes, statistically indistinguishable from Hillary Clinton's 91% in 2016. Okay, so let's get this straight. Biden doesn't beat Hillary in any categories. He has less counties taken than she did. Yet for some reason, he gets 15 million more votes than she did, and he had the same percentage of black votes she did. Okay? But there's a big difference between Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, the way black people see it, and you're going to hear it. All right? The Democratic Party recognized the fact that what you're about to hear was true, and that Biden was not going to be getting the same rates of black vote as Hillary Clinton because black people happen to have been living in the United States from 2017 to 2020. And what did they know? Their lives were better under Trump. They had more money under Trump. Trump got a better percentage of black vote than most Republicans because he said, what do you have to lose? And they gave him a chance. And he proved them right. Now, why would all these black people who made money under Trump vote for Biden when Biden they knew was a racist? And you're going to hear it live and in color. Tape from an African-American woman who knew what was going on. You can tell this woman knows what she's doing. She's very confident. And it's going to be a problem for the Democratic Party because the slave mentality in the Democratic Party is not going to work anymore with the younger African Americans, black Americans, who are starting to recognize as, I can't remember his name, is a black writer. He wrote a book and he was on TV and he said the biggest problem blacks are going to now face is how to deal with freedom. He says, because they're free. They can do whatever the hell they want. Well, you know what? They all got to do what the hell they wanted when Trump was president. And I hear it every day on Facebook through my black friends that are all on their own businesses. They're all Trump supporters. Isn't that amazing? They're all Trump supporters. And they all have their own businesses. They're independent. They had the ability to do what they could do. So I'm going to play that video for you now. And then after that, I've got some other things that will go into the next step. So here's Michaela from Atlanta.
Such a good point. Michaela, what has Biden done for our community? What has he done for Black America?
Well, he locked up a lot of people that look like me, and they're still sitting in jail waiting for, justice, an appeal of some sort. So when it comes to what Joe Biden has done for Black America, if we look specifically at his record as a senator, it wasn't something that benefited us at all. If anything, one could argue that he dedicated his entire senatorial career to disrupting the way of life, for Black people. He didn't want Black kids going to the same school as his kids. He didn't want Black people walking on the sidewalk along with his mother and grandmother. So the fact that we ignore these things that were said on the Senate floor, like this is somebody who passed legislation with the sole intent of oppressing a certain community. And we're going to act like that didn't happen, or we're going to act like it can be overshadowed by somebody's comments a few years down the line that made us feel some type of way. Feeling some type of way is completely different when you can feel a certain type of way at home. There's people who are, as of right now, spending the rest of their lives in jail because, Joe Biden thought that they deserved it, as if there isn't retribution. And then you had somebody like Trump come in and give us the First Step Act to try and right the wrongs that were done with this 3 strikes rule, and nobody's talking about that.
Okay. Now that you heard Michaela, everything she said about Joe Biden occurred before Trump was president. Do you think the Black people forgot about Biden after the Trump election and decided to go vote for Biden? No, that didn't happen. Okay, so the Democrats knew they had to steal 15 million votes and they had to put them in the black areas. Okay, because they had to show that Biden got black vote. It's easier to hide. Oh yeah. They pulled the same shit in 2012 with Philadelphia when Obama's reelection. Remember, Barack Obama was not reelected president. He was the worst president in history since Jimmy Carter. Now Biden's the worst president since Obama. Okay, he did not win the 2020 election. That was stolen also. They only had to steal a few states like Florida. I covered that a long time ago. Okay, now how do we know that the Democrats had planned to steal the election using the black communities, paying these people to commit election fraud, to put these fake ballots in all the time? Black voter groups in Michigan filed suit in District of Columbia. Now, why would a black group in Michigan file a suit in the District of Columbia? Because 95% of the District of Columbia is Democrat. The majority percentage of it is black. And so if you're going to commit racist fraud or go after Donald Trump, you have to go to District of Columbia or New York to get corrupt judges. Black voter groups in Michigan filed suit in the District of Columbia against the Trump campaign on November 20th, 2020. Really? Let's see. The actual election day was Tuesday, November 3rd. The election was stolen after midnight, which was November 4th. So within 16 days, 4th one, yeah. Within 16 days, the NAACP and their legal experts, along with other law firms, came up and decided to sue Trump, alleging the campaign had disenfranchised black voters through their attempts to challenge election results in Detroit, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Atlanta. In other words, we're suing Donald Trump because his people figured out that we stole the election with fake votes in these 4 black areas. So we're charging him with racism. So they came up with 4 names of people from Michigan to represent in the lawsuit because the NAACP couldn't sue on their own. They had to be representing somebody. A federal court in D.C. ruled in favor of the NAACP and the Michigan Welfare Rights Organization in this case. The court's ruling allowed the plaintiffs to proceed with filing a second amended complaint. I don't know the status of that lawsuit now. It was probably dropped because it was fake to begin with. And there's no way you could go after Donald Trump for going to fix the election. I mean, not to fix the election, but to expose the fixing of the election. See, the Democrats knew what they did. And this baby right here got me onto it right off the bat. I mean, I was onto the black community stealing the election for the Democrats. I don't know how much money the Democrats paid out, but they did put some extra millions into those 4 states. But that's how you expose everything, okay? You go into those towns, okay? You send black conservatives in to investigate, okay, and find out what went on. And then that's how you get them all. That's how you get them all through the election fraud, okay? And then you get back our $7 trillion that has been stolen from us since this happened, okay? But you have evidence now that I've given you with this woman that you just heard and this lawsuit, okay? Because the question is, why would the Democrats file a lawsuit and have to find 4 black people in the Detroit area to represent and say that Trump tried to disenfranchise black voters? Let's see. What percentage of black vote are you saying that he got? Well, he got 92%, and Hillary Clinton got 91%. Boy, I guess Trump did a tremendous job disenfranchising them, huh? You gotta understand, criminals are basically stupid because they think they're so intelligent. They think, oh yeah, we'll get away with this. We can do that. Okay, so we kill off 1 million Americans with the 1 million elderly with the pandemic. Who cares? That's 1 million senior citizens that have been killed, and then that's about $250 billion of money available through Social Security we can use to buy 15 million new illegal voters. And that's exactly what they're doing. And that's why they're in the process of making sure every illegal alien can vote in the election, which is illegal, but they're trying to pass the law to do it. Okay. That part's covered. So you should never have any issue with the fact that the 2020 election was stolen, but you should work to make sure that the $7 trillion the Democrats stole from us, the $7 trillion that's caused all this inflation, we get our money back. In the middle of the night, the Dems released a 2,741-page, $1.5 trillion government funding bill. We're scheduled to vote on it today around 12 hours later. This is no way to run a country. But the Democrats don't believe in the Constitution. They violate their oath of office. They violate their oath of office because their oath says that they will defend the Constitution, and they're not. So that means every Democrat, every registered Democrat sitting in Washington as either a senator or a congressman or a president can be taken off to jail. Take them all off to jail. Now, let me ask you a question. You think that's what's going to happen to them if Trump becomes president? They're all going to go to jail? What do you think? What do you think they're going to do this time to make sure there's no election? Besides trying to prove that Trump is guilty of whatever. All right, now. This is an amazing chart. What is it? It's a chart showing the 101st Congress, 102nd Congress, 103rd Congress, and how many laws they passed while they were in charge of Congress. And you'll notice that most amount of laws are passed when the Democrats control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. That's what they do. They take control of the country. And look, here's the Republican Congress, the 118th Congress that started in 2023. The Democrats are trying to say, hey, they ain't doing shit. They've only passed 30 laws or something. The 118th, this is Axios. Axios is a communist organization, propaganda bullshit. Their job is to make sure you think that you're not right and that make those that know they're not right think they're right. The 118th Congress is on track to be one of the most unproductive in modern history, with just a couple dozen laws on the books at the close of 2023. What a coincidence that the next video I'm going to show you this gets addressed. This gets addressed. Why it matters? It's the product of not only divided partisan control of Washington, but infighting within the House Republican majority. Okay, so what do we have? We have the Democrats who have single-handedly destroyed the nation, destroyed the border, created all this inflation, okay? And now they're trying to say, you need to reelect us more than the Republicans because the Republicans aren't getting anything done. The Republicans haven't created any inflation. We did that. Oh, wait, no, we're not supposed to say that. Forget what we just said. The Republicans, we'll figure it out. The Republicans aren't doing shit, okay? Are we supposed to have 400 new laws every effing year from the Congress of the United States? Is that why we have them on full time, except when they go on vacations 4 or 6 times a year? The Congress of the United States has to change. Why do all the states only have their legislators in for like 4 months every other year? Because you don't need to have all these laws. Why do the Democrats create all these laws? Let's find out.
Gentleman yields back. The gentlelady from Indiana, Ms. Sparks, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make a couple of brief remarks on just some of the issues that were brought up from other side and then kind of get to the subject. No, honestly, I agree. Last Congress, the other side passed a lot of very bad bills. I don't think quantity of bills is a good legislation, and actually wasted a lot of money. And unfortunately, they had control on whole houses and presidency and were able to do a lot of bad legislation and not dealing with the real issues affecting Americans, crushing debt, inflation, and the spending, and what's happening on our border is very destructive for our country. And they don't want to do, and they don't even want to find bipartisan agreement on these issues, this Congress, which is very sad for me to see. I know there is a lot of discussions about, January 6th, and I've been in the chamber January 6th, and I'll tell you something, we call this insurrection. I'll have to tell you, if the people that show up there wanted to do it, they would have succeeded, but they didn't show up for that reason. It was people that were upset because the quality of people came there. They were mad because we are not governing for the people. And that's unfortunately what was very strange to me, that Speaker Pelosi didn't have a security. Speaker Pelosi insisted for us to stay in the chamber, where I personally demanded to leave that chamber. So a lot of things, the other side dropped the ball. And it was very unfortunate for me to see that. So I think this is beyond the subject of this matter, but we need to stop, accusing people that disagree with the government that have been very corrupt and oppressive, to actually come here and, express peacefully their dissatisfaction. And there are always some bad players, and who knows who they are, but we don't call all people insurrectionists. This is just un-American to do it, and I'm sick and tired of the other side constantly doing it, because I knew a lot of people that were there in the crowd, and they're good Americans, patriotic, that love this country.
Oh, look. 5 major bills Congress passed in 2022. 2022, yeah. That's when Biden was president. They had the Senate, and they had the House. Joe Biden signs H.R. 84, the Respect for Marriage Act. Respect for Marriage Act, okay? Marriage is between a man and a woman. What? That's disrespectful. Washington was a busy year for Congress, which passed a slew of consequential bills, most of which enjoyed support from both parties. Bullshit. And it may be the high water mark of Joe Biden's presidency from a legislative standpoint, okay? And it may be the high watermark of Joe Biden's presidency from a legislative standpoint, with Republicans poised to take over the House of Representatives in 2023, okay? The disinformation campaign for 2023. Remember, the Democrats are the party of terrorism. When they're not in power, they terrorize the Republicans. Want to see some of it? Just go up on YouTube and type in congressional hearings and watch. Anything that the Republicans are doing for the benefit of the United States and the Democrats don't like it, the Democrats attack. It's so disgusting. Well, after you've watched that, you realize what I've realized. There's no effing way Democrats and Republicans can live in the same country. We can't, okay? And I know Trump is talking about bringing everybody together, but Trump knows there are segments in this country, blue zones in this country, they're taken over by Hamas, Somaliland. Okay, as 2 years of full Democratic control come to an end, here are 5 of the most significant bills passed in 2022. A sweeping climate, health, and tax bill. The Inflation Reduction Act. That worked well, huh? Now let's see. Let's just take our thinking caps and go, okay, what's inflation? Inflation is when too much money is put into the money supply. And how is that done? The Democrats spent 1.5, 1.7. Now the 1.7 has been thrown out supposedly because she didn't have a quorum, just like she didn't have a quorum for January 6th. She didn't have a quorum. Everybody's going to go, what do you mean? She split the Congress up, the House of Representatives, She wanted just a minimal amount of people on the floor. The rest had to be up in the gallery. She was using COVID as the reason. But the real reason was she didn't want enough Republicans on the floor to overturn the election by overturning 6 fraudulent electors, and then it goes to the House of Representatives. The due process in this country is dead. The last video you're going to see is Jay Sekulow. And Jay stands in front of, he's at the impeachment hearing, and he takes out this sword, the scalpel, and he cuts up the Democrats into little pieces. Okay? But after you see this video, you'll know who the Democrats are and why they need to go to Tanganyika. Send them there. They can't be anywhere in this hemisphere because they could get on the boat or they could walk and come through the U.S. like the millions of criminals now. The Inflation Reduction Act represents the largest attempt in U.S. history to combat inflation, of course, right? The Inflation Reduction Act represents the largest attempt in U.S. history to combat climate change? What? With a $369 billion package of clean energy funding covering cars and homes and businesses. All bullshit. I'm telling you, the Democrats need to pay this $1.5 trillion bill back and all the other freaking $1 trillion bills they came up with. They spend too much money. That's what they do. They spend all our money. They spend us into bankruptcy. And then when the Republicans do it, they go, oh, they're unproductive. Democrats believe they're productive when they steal our money. Hey, that's like bank robbers. The bank robbers don't go in and steal from the bank. Well, they failed. The Democrats get into Congress and lie, steal, and cheat, and then don't cheat us. Don't steal from us. It also aims to curb methane emissions and set aside money for communities heavily affected by air pollution and other climate-related issues. Climate change is bullshit. Everyone knows it's bullshit. It's a Marxist Manchurian program to put money in the pockets of communist China and take money out of the pockets of Americans. There's more funding for IS collection included in the bill too, because remember, stealing America's money costs money. Okay, and that's going to be another part of this segment. I'm going to talk a bit about my war with the IRS because I've had enough. I've had enough. Respect for Marriage Act. Enshrining same-sex marriage. Enshrining it. So I guess I should marry a guy instead of a woman? Is that what they're telling me? One of the final acts of the Democrat-controlled Congress was to pass a law that codifies federal protections for marriages between same-sex and interracial couples. Now, why do they want to get federal protection? Because some states don't put up with this shit. Now, I don't care. I don't care who you marry. I don't care. As long as you're not killing somebody, raping somebody, as long as you're not doing harm to somebody, I don't care who you marry. I've known gay people. Most of them, I'd have to say, are pretty nice people. But we don't need to have a system set up just so they can get the same frickin' tax benefits. That's what all this is about. It's to make sure that they can be considered get the standard deduction for a married couple. The IRS tax code needs to go away because all it does is control our lives. It's not supposed to. The Constitution is supposed to be in order. In the last video, you're going to hear Jay Sekulow basically explain to you why the Democrats do what they do to violate the Constitution with regard to due process. All the shit they're going after Trump for, it's all thrown out because of the Constitution. That's why they're going after him in state courts, because the states don't have to follow the Constitution, especially if they're blue states. The Respect for Marriage Act, led by Senator Tammy Baldwin, the first openly gay American elected to the Senate. Oh, she's the first openly gay. Who was the first closely gay? Who was the first closely gay American elected to the Senate? Forces the federal government to recognize legally performed same-sex marriages and to ensure couples full benefits regardless of couples' sex, race, ethnicity, or natural origin. In other words, complying with tax codes, complying with the enslaved tax code. That has to go away. The tax code has to go away. The legislation came after the new 6-3 conservative majority of the Supreme Court voted last summer to overturn Roe v. Wade. What do they do with Roe v. Wade? They sent it back to the states. Let the states do this. It's not a federal issue. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? You want to kill children one day before they're born? Move to a state that allows you to do it. Okay? You want to have same-sex marriage? Go to a state that allows it. You know, in the movie, The Free State of Jones, it turns out that the son of, I forget his first name, Jones, Matthew McConaughey played, he was white, but his mother was black. And so they're in the courtroom in, I guess, Mississippi, and they're saying that his blood work shows that he's like 2% black or something, or, you know, and therefore he's in violation by trying to marry a white woman. Now you're watching this and you're going, what the fuck? That was the mentality that we've had to deal with even today. And what political party was that mentality of? Democrats! So, oh, this one's a beauty. Ready for this? I saw this, I almost shit. Okay? A new election law aimed at preventing another January 6th. A new law preventing January 6th? What's that mean? Preventing erections, insurrections, treason? What's it? The massive government funding bill also had this. The massive government funding bill that passed Friday included a major election reform package designed to prevent future presidential candidates from stealing elections. Okay, can anyone tell me what presidential candidate stole an election? It wasn't Donald Trump. It was the Democrats. Why would the Democrats pass a law to prevent them from stealing an election by using fraud and murder? Oh, the Electoral Count Reform Act will revise the 1887 Electoral Count Act to make clear the vice president cannot discount electoral votes. It'll raise the threshold for objections from one member of each the House and Senate to 1/5. In other words, they escaped January 6th. See, this was all, you know, these assholes tell you they're guilty all the time. You just don't catch them because you're not paying attention to them. But I am. So, Susan Collins and Joe Manchin signed the bill to make sure that we violate the due process of every election from now on. That needs to get thrown out. That needs to get tested in the Supreme Court. Okay, so let's do this. I'm trying to keep this to an hour. Okay, hold on here. All right, so let's see. Yeah. Got that. Okay, scam is business. Okay, we did that. Okay, so here we go. I've got 2 more videos for you. Video number 3 is about the IRS tax code being illegal. Now, it's not about the IRS tax code being illegal. We already know it's illegal. So, I believe that inflation is a tax. Now, why do I consider it a tax? Because it is a result of a congressional bill designed to spend more money than necessary, which creates inflation and raises the costs of everything to Americans. Right now, Americans are paying $1,000 more a month due to inflation by the Biden administration. That is a tax that has to be challenged in court. I'm challenging it. How am I challenging it? By claiming inflation as a tax. In my 2022 tax return, which the IRS hasn't come back with yet, it's been over a year. I guess they can't figure it out. But $8,700, they kept telling us $8,700. All right, $8,700 was the cost of inflation. It was like $700 a month. So I paid out $8,700 during the year for inflation tax. So I put it in there. There's a section, a line that says tax payments made during the year. So I put it in because it's a tax payment. I paid it. The government says I paid it. Now, does the government acknowledge inflation is being a tax? My answer, Your Honor, is yes, they do. And how do you know, Mr. Wiley? Because they increased the standard deduction $400 for inflation. So the IRS knows inflation exists, but they want to shove it up our ass. So while the Democrats cost us $8,700 for the year, the government's going to be kind enough to give us a $400 increase in the standard deduction. Isn't that nice? Aren't they wonderful? Aren't they criminals? I'm fighting them. I filed my tax return that way. Come after me. You want to deny it? I'll take you to court. It doesn't matter. If I got 3 more years to live, I'm fighting this bitch all the way. Because it's wrong. Someone's going to stand up and fight it. The best person to fight that's not an attorney would be me. Okay? So now I'm getting ready to do my 2023 tax return, and inflation is $4,600 this year. So I'll be deducting the $4,600. The IRS did give us an increase in the standard deduction of $900 this year for inflation. Oh, so right now they're only short $12,000 to every American on their taxes. The IRS has stiffed the American people $12,000 over the last 2 years. I'm taking them to court for that, or they're taking me to court, but this is a battle that I'm not giving up on. The battle needs to be fought. And this is the whole reason why the Constitution prevented Congress from creating a law that taxed people directly. Okay? Remember, the Democrats, the progressives don't follow the Constitution. They never have. 1913, they got rid of the tax-free part of a living, and they made us pay money so they could pay for all the wars all around the world, steal money from us. That was the 16th Amendment. And then they got rid of the Senate being represented by the states, being represented by the Senate by the 17th Amendment. And instead, the senators are elected by wealthy people with lots of money. And that's why we have shitbirds like Patty Murray in Oregon, or Washington State, who's a gym teacher. She really knows about it. She's been there for 30 years. 30 years. She started her 6th term. That's ridiculous. But incumbents with money can't beat them. It's a system. It's a fixed system. I'm fighting it. Now there's another thing I'm fighting. Okay. If you make a certain amount of money through the stock market, and let's say during the year you made $15,000 investing in stocks, and you bought them and you sold them within the same year, so it's considered a short-term gain because it's within the year. Long term is over a year. So you fill out your tax return and it says, okay, Mike, you made $15,000 this year. You have to show it as income so we can tax this shit out of you, okay? Well, what if I lost $15,000? Well, same thing, Mike. You take your $15,000 loss and you put it down here so we can fuck you up the ass. Pardon that expression, but that's what they do. You can only deduct $3,000. I'm sorry. We know you lost 15, but we have the Criminal Inflection Act. Okay? That's where we bend you over and shove it up your ass. And so you only get to deduct that $3,000. They did that shit to me in 2008. They did a couple of things to me in 2008. The other one is the First Time Home Buyers Act, which I'm fighting now also. So there's 3 issues, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't fucking matter. I don't care if I die in court. I'm fighting this shit. If someone's going to fight it, I couldn't fight it in 2008. I wasn't in a position to fight it in 2008, but I am in position now. In 2008, I had a good income. I was making money, and I was playing the stock market, and I like to play options. It's like gambling, and I lost about, I think, $17,000. Was I able to deduct the $17,000 short-term gain on short-term loss on my tax return?
No, Mike. You can only claim $3,000 because you're an American. Yeah, that's the penalty for being American. We get to shove it up your ass, but we like shoving things up your ass.
$3,000. So it took me 6 years to write off that $17,000. But if it was a gain, I would have to claim it all the first year. Let me ask you a question. Does that sound fair? Oh, Mike, it doesn't sound fair. Why do you think the IRS code's 7,000 pages? Because there's so many ways to steal money from the American people. And I've already covered it. I've gone through a whole bunch of that shit. But Monday is April 15th. That's the anniversary of Lincoln's death. And that's why we pay taxes on the 15th. Because the Democrats like to shove shit up our ass. Okay? But I know you're saying to me, Mike, you're wrong. Mike, you're wrong. Mike, you're wrong. Inflation is not a tax. Inflation is not a tax. Inflation is not a tax. Watch this next video. And then see why Charlie, what's his last name, of the Washington Times on Kudlow is saying about inflation is the worst tax on American people, especially the poor. It's a tax on the poor. Think about it. How else can you get Americans to spend more money by stealing their money? Inflation, because it's like a tax. It's created by the government. The Congress creates inflation. Biden created all this inflation with the Democrats passing $7 trillion in bills, taking the Federal Reserve to then borrow $7 trillion to put us more into debt. And then they put that money into the economy, and that's inflation. And that causes supply and demand scenarios, and all of a sudden, everything costs more. Yesterday, I went and I saw that hamburgers at $8.58 a pound. $8 hamburger, $8 from Mexico, $8.58 a pound. Yeah, all our hamburger comes from Mexico. We're not allowed to have hamburger in the United States anymore, unless the Chinese own it or something.
Oh, I think it's terrible, and the idea that he's going to be able to turn it around in a quick few months seems pretty impossible to me. But you know more about that than I do. We talk about all these other issues a lot. We talk about illegal immigration, the open border. We talk about some of the stuff going on overseas, and obviously a lot of that stuff cuts against Joe Biden. But nothing ever trumps the economy. in an election. Nothing ever trumps the economy. Sometimes security can, but security trumps the economy only if the economy is doing okay. If people feel like the economy is bad and people are hurting, and that is what's going on right now. People are paying. Inflation has taken a giant chunk of cash out of people's pockets. It has been a massive tax on everybody, hurting the poorest people the most. Because that's the way a tax like that works.
So that's covered. And then last but not least is Jay Sekulow. Listen to this man tear the shit out of Adam Schiff and the Democrats. Okay. And he rests my case. The Democrats totally violate the Constitution. If they're not going to follow the laws, they either sit in electric chairs or they go home. Go back to Seattle, go back to San Francisco. We're going to take all the red counties and we're separating them out. I don't give a shit. Okay? I know Trump wants to unite the country, but it ain't going to happen. Parts of the country he's going to be able to unite. Okay? And I bet a good portion of it's going to be the black communities that have had enough of the Democrats' bullshit. Okay? And you know what it was? They had to sit and watch this asshole. This black asshole mayor in Chicago is getting ready to spend $30 million on migrants. He's a Democrat and he's black. The question is, why do black Democrats hate black people just like the white Democrats do? All of you out there that are black and are Democrats, Republican Party is your party. The first 24 blacks elected to Congress were Republicans. And the Democrats had to use the Great Depression to kill the golden age of black business. I've done shows on it, you can read it yourself. 1900 1930 was the greatest growth of black industry in this country. Okay? The Democrats had to get rid of it. They came up with the fake depression. In 2002, Ben Bernanke apologized for the Federal Reserve because the Federal Reserve recognized that they created it. And because all black people all of a sudden turned from wealthy to poor, they decided to join the Democratic Party, and they've been enslaved in the Democratic Party ever since. Okay, the Great Depression was a political activity to get blacks to get out of entrepreneurialism and become wards of the Democratic Party. Okay, that's today's show. We're in a war. We got to start fighting. That's why I created the Alliance of Free States, constitutional enforcement, border enforcement, and the treason trials. They've been committing crimes against us. And we already started the treason trials. I'm going to put them I'm redoing these into 1-hour specials to create this encyclopedia. And then I'm going to put it into a special list on YouTube so people can go in to see it. We're on Rumble, and then I always put the show on. Once I do this show, I load it up on the Facebook, Getter, Truth Social. And that's the name of that tune. So enjoy the videos. And I guess you're going to know that I'm not full of shit. I bring proof. I'm telling you, one day I probably am not going to be breathing when it occurs, but one day we'll take back the country. I want to have it happen soon. I'm in on that. I just don't know when it's going to start, but I can tell you one thing right now. For some reason, Americans born in the United States with white skin or black skins can't go to Washington, D.C. for a Stop the Steal rally. No, that's illegal. But these Hamas Palestinian terrorists, they can go anywhere they want to, do anything they want to, and they don't get arrested. Why is that? Because our country is being run by Manchurian communists from Beijing. America does not run its own country. Communist Chinese do. That's why the Communist Chinese military is coming into California, okay? And everybody else is coming into Texas, and we're being invaded. And thank God we all have guns, because you know what? We're going to end up using them. I hate to say it. Okay. I don't think they're going to allow Trump to become president. It doesn't make sense. Because they're going to go to jail. Okay. They know what Trump's going to do. Trump's going to hire, I think he's going to hire Whitaker to be the attorney general. Whitaker's going to rip the shit out of these criminals. All right. Till next week. Love you. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Justice, members of the Senate, Leader McConnell, Democratic Leader Schumer. It's also my privilege to represent the President of the United States before this chamber. Senator Schumer said earlier today that the eyes of the founders are on these proceedings. Indeed, that's true. But it is the heart of the Constitution that governs these proceedings. And what we just heard from Manager Schiff, courts have no role, privileges don't apply. What happened in the past, we should just ignore. In fact, Manager Schiff just said, try to summarize my colleague's defense of the president. He said it not in those words, of course, which is not the first time Mr. Schiff has put words into transcripts that did not exist. Mr. Schiff also talked about a trifecta. I'll give you a trifecta. During the proceedings that took place before the Judiciary Committee, the president was denied the right to cross-examine witnesses. The president was denied the right to access evidence. And the president was denied the right to have counsel present at hearings. That's a trifecta. A trifecta that violates the Constitution of the United States. Mr. Schiff did say the courts really don't have a role in this. Executive privilege, why would that matter? It matters because it's based in the Constitution of the United States. One manager said that it is you that are on trial, the Senate. He also said that, and others did, that you're not capable of abiding by your oath. And then we had the invocation of the ghost of the Mueller report. I know something about that report. It came up empty on the issue of collusion with Russia. There was no obstruction. In fact, the Mueller report, to the contrary of what these managers say today, came to the exact opposite conclusions of what they say. Let me quote from the House impeachment report at page 16. Although President Trump has in times invoked the notion of due process, an impeachment trial, an impeachment inquiry is not a criminal trial and should not be confused with it. Believe me, what has taken place in these proceedings is not to be confused with due process. Because due process demands, and the Constitution requires, that fundamental fairness and due process, we're hearing a lot about due process is designed to protect the person accused. When the Russia investigation failed, it devolved into the Ukraine. A quid pro quo. When that didn't prove out, it was then bribery or maybe extortion, or somebody said, one of the members or the members of the House said treason. But instead we get two articles of impeachment. Two articles of impeachment that have a vague allegation about a non-crime allegation of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Managers, right here, before you today, who have said that executive privilege and constitutional privileges have no place in these proceedings. On June 28, 2012, Attorney General Eric Holder became the first United States Attorney General to be held in both civil and criminal contempt. Why? Because President Obama asserted executive privilege. With respect to the Holder contempt proceedings, Mr. Manager Schiff wrote, "The White House assertion of privilege is backed by decades of precedent that has recognized the need for the President and his senior advisors to receive candid advice and information from their top aides." Indeed, that's correct. Not because Manager Schiff said it, but because the Constitution requires it. Mr. Manager Nadler said that the effort to hold Eric Holder, Attorney General Holder, in contempt for refusing to comply with various subpoenas was, quote, politically motivated, and Speaker Pelosi called the Holder matter, and I quote, a little more than a witch hunt. What are we dealing with here? Why are we here? Are we here because of a phone call? Or are we here before this great body because since the President was sworn into office, there was a desire to see him removed? I remember in the Mueller report, there were discussions about, insurance policies. The insurance policy didn't work out so well. So then we moved to other investigations. I guess you would call it reinsurance or an umbrella policy. And that didn't work out so well. And here we are today. Manager Schiff quoted the Supreme Court, and I'd like to make reference to the Supreme Court as well. It was then Justice Rehnquist, later to be Chief Justice Rehnquist, who wrote for the majority in United States versus Russell in 1973. These are the words. "We may someday be presented with a situation in which the conduct of law enforcement agents is so outrageous that due process principles would absolutely bar the government from invoking judicial process to obtain a conviction. That day is today." That day was a year ago. That day was in July, when Special Counsel Mueller testified. I am not today going to take the time to review, and I will do it later, the pattern and practices of irregularities that have gone on in these investigations from the outset. But to say that the courts have no role, the rush to impeachment, to not wait for a decision from a court on an issue as important as executive privilege, as if executive privilege hasn't been utilized by presidents since our founding. This is not some new concept. We don't waive executive privilege, and there's a reason we keep executive privilege, and we assert it when necessary. And that is to protect the Constitution and the separation of powers. The president's opponents, in their rush to impeach, have refused to wait for complete judicial review. That was their choice. Speaker Pelosi clearly expressed her impatience and contempt for judicial proceedings when she said, "We cannot be at the mercy of the courts." Think about that for a moment. We cannot be at the mercy of the courts. So take Article 3 of the United States Constitution, remove it. We're acting as if the courts are an improper venue to determine constitutional issues of this magnitude. That is why we have courts. That is why we have a federal judiciary. It was interesting when Professor Turley testified before the House Judiciary Committee in front of Mr. Nadler's committee. He said, "We have 3 branches of government, not 2. If you impeach a president, if you make a high crime and misdemeanor out of going to courts and abuse of power, it's your abuse of power." You know, it's more than that. A lot more than that. There's a lot more than an abuse of power if you say the courts don't apply. Constitutional principles don't apply. Let's start with a clean slate as if nothing happened. A lot has happened. As we proceed in the days ahead, we will lay out our case. We're going to put forward to the American people, but more important, for the Constitution's sake, what's taken place here. But this idea that we should ignore what has taken place over the last 3 years is outrageous. We believe that what Senator McConnell has put forward provides due process, allows the proceedings to move forward in an orderly fashion. 33 days. 33 days they held on to those impeachment articles. 33 days. It was such a rush of national security to impeach this president before Christmas that they then held him for 33 days. To do what? To act as if they negotiate, the House of Representatives should negotiate the rules of the United States Senate. They didn't hide this. This was the express purpose. This was the reason they did it. We're prepared to proceed. Majority Leader, Democratic Majority Leader, we're prepared to proceed. In our view, these proceedings should begin.